Thank you for that. Very good. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Wow, it's a Hall of Fame award coming up in just a couple of weeks for BTO. Long time coming.
Yes,
thank you. This is going to be crazy. It's in Winnipeg. You won't even be able to make a speech.
So you can't go home, but we're going home to quite a party.
You are. So Randy's got a new book out, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute. But before that, we've been talking about the environment here, Randy, and we had a clip from Neil Young, who was talking about the Athabasca Chippewa and First Nations. What do you think when you see celebrities really standing up for what they believe in? Because Neil got a bit of flack for that.
He's always done that. For a Day in Ohio, he's always written the song immediately and gone out there and put his pretty much career and future on the line, and you got to give him credit for that. I think a certain fraction or amount of the people would listen to him because he speaks from the heart and from experience, and he's seen it all. So he might get some people to listen to him or take notice rather than the press or the parental thing, telling kids things, you know what I mean? You just wanted to get people thinking, I think, and provoke them and into discussion and talking about it. And his big line was honor the treaties that already exist. So
right, not so hard to figure out.
No,
yeah,
pretty simple.
On one level, not so hard to understand. Yeah, exactly. Well, you've been, American Woman was one of those songs that got a lot of different interpretations, right?
It was an anti-war song.
Right. Tell us the story about writing that song.
Well, it was in Kitchener-Waterloo and in a curling rink, a typical Canadian dance in February. And I broke a string on stage. Didn't have a tech, had to change my own string. Didn't have a tuner, like these days they have tuners. Right. So Burton said, Randy broke a string, we're going to take a break. So I got on my knees on the left side of the stage where his piano was, in the dark, was playing the notes on the piano and tuning up my guitar, getting my guitar to this. When I got to this, and I went.
Woo!
That's what happened. The audience started; their heads snapped around. I went, "Oh my goodness! I can't stop playing this. If I stop playing it, I'll forget it. It's very, very simple." And I was just tuning the guitar, and so I stood up. I'm on stage alone, and I got the drummer on stage and the bass player, Jim and Gary. And then Burton came running on stage after the fact, and I said, sing something, sing anything. And there's a thing when you're writing music, if you sing any silly lyrics to it, like Paul McCartney using scrambled eggs for Yesterday, it helped him remember da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So I just said to Burton, sing anything, and the first thing he yelled was American Woman, Stay Away From Me.
Wow.
But previous to that, we had been in the States with green cards, held the Canadians in our early 20s. And they tried to draft us. So we came back to Canada, turned in our green cards, and got to Kitchener-Waterloo. We were on our way to Texas and didn't go. And that song came out of nowhere, just on stage. So.
And I remember when Lenny Kravitz covered it.
That was great.
Yeah, and I was at Much Music at the time, and we arranged for Lenny Kravitz to play with you. And it was crazy because the managers got involved. They're like, oh, that'll never happen, because Randy's goes, dun, dun, da, 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 and then Lenny's goes, da, 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 and there was a big, and he plays it in a different key, and suddenly it was impossible, and the musicians got together and it worked.
I know, musicians always kind of work things out. The managers fight things out. So.
Right, yeah. Well, that's what they're paid for, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So this new book, Tales from Beyond the Tap, tons of great stories in this book. And it's a really strong structure for a memoir, I thought, because you basically answer questions that your fans ask you all the time.
So there's the Vinyl Tap book. This is Beyond the Tap.
Right.
So it's stories that I've told on my radio show or told that then get edited because I have to play some music on my radio show.
Right.
So Todd would take a 10-minute story of mine and get it down to a minute and a half to prelude a song, and then we would play the song. And then the story kind of ends with the song.
Right.
The stories go on and on. He asked me specific questions about people that influenced my life, negatively or positively, songs I like, guitars I like, things that were quite personal. And I didn't do it all at once, or maybe it would not have turned out that way. John Anderson listened to hundreds of hours of radio shows and took this stuff out and then asked me to expound on it with emails. And I would do it on the road, just in an hour here, an hour there at an airport, and didn't really know what I was telling him that all at once, all this stuff was coming out.
And there it was.
There it is. Yeah.
Well, one of the questions I ask you in here is, what would you have been if you weren't a successful musician?
And my answer?
An unsuccessful musician.
I
know. It's a great story.
Because I knew at the age of 5 that I played classical violin at the age of 5. I remember grade 1 in school, the teacher, they would do a seating plan. So they would draw the squares and they would go, row 1, seat 1, what's your name? My name is Denise Donlan. And what does your daddy do? Well, he's a fireman or a policeman or whatever. And that's how they do the seating plan. So when it got to me, what's your name? Randy Bachman. What's your dad do? He's an optician. What do you want to be when you grow up? I said, I'm a musician.
Already?
Yes, but what do you want to be when you grow up? I'm a musician. What do you want to be when you grow up? I ran home. I lived a block and a half from school. This is Victory School in the north end of Winnipeg. I ran home the first day of school. My mother's doing the laundry, and she says, what are you doing home? Is school out? And I said, no, I quit. I keep giving the answer to the questions, and it's wrong, and it's the only answer I know. So she took me back to school and explained to the teacher that I had been playing violin, and I was a musician, and then that was that. But I knew at that kind of age that was my destiny. So when you know that early, and that's your passion, that's your gift from God and or the angel of whatever who gives you your talents, and you do that at such an early age, there's no question about what you're going to do. And when you do it long enough and with passion, I'm not worried about the monetary side of it, just doing it because you love to do it, and then you get good at it, and you put in your 10,000 hours by the time you're 10 or 12 years of age. You hit your tipping point, and suddenly you are a really good musician. And you start a band with other guys who've also hit their tipping point, and you're all seasoned musicians. When guys start a band now, they barely can play their instruments. And Burton Cummings had started piano at the age of 6. Gary Peterson started drums at 3 and could read charts, and I'd started violin. So we had this, by the time we were teenagers and wanted to play in a band, we were musicians for like 10 years.
Right, ready to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, one of the things you talk about in the book a lot is you talk about your sobriety, right? So you were in a rock and roll world, and you stayed away from drugs and drinking and alcohol and cigarettes.
Yeah.
And you took
coffee. I've never drank coffee
really?
in my life. Yeah.
Wow. And then you took a business course. So while everybody else was partying, you were taking care of business, she said. Tell me the story about that.
That was kind of by default, because I knew I was going to be a musician, but my dad would always get me a job. We'll be having dinner. Where are you going to? Well, I'm going to play Daniel Mack in Winnipeg. I'm making like $50 tonight. Well, I got you a job with a friend of mine at Bata Shoes or at Hudson Bay selling men's ties. Well, what does it pay? $3.50 an hour. And I'd go after school and work at this job and work like $9, get on a bus, go right to my gig and make $50. To me, this made no sense.
No brainer.
And so that's kind of like what my dad was pushing
So you
me
went to
into.
business school as a favor to him.
As a favor to him and to not have to work.
Right.
What can I do? You can go to school and play in a band. Great, I'll do that. So I went to business school, and we had the hit Shakin' All Over come out. So I remember it's like a week before final exams, I'm cleaning up my locker, and the head of economics comes and says, you're cleaning out the locker early. You're like, why? And he said, finals are in like 2 weeks. I said, I'm not writing finals. I'm going to New York to be an Ed Sullivan. We're going to be the new Canadian Beatles. And we went to New York. Ed Sullivan didn't know who we were. It was one of those phone calls from a manager, maybe I could get you on Ed Sullivan.
Right.
But here we were in New York City, and at that time we met Phil Ramone. Our song Shakin' All Over was on Scepter Records. We went to Scepter and met Florence Greenberg, who owned the label. She managed the Shirelles and wrote Soldier Boy for them. She managed the Crystals. We became the backup band for the Shirelles and the Crystals and the Ronettes. We went on tour, these 4 guys from Winnipeg, white guys backing up black girl bands. And for us, it was fantastic.
Right.
But that was the
I
racial
bet.
tension of the 60s was really heavy duty.
Well, take me through that song, Taking Care of Business, because it's still one of those songs that is a signature song for you. How did it come about?
I was copying. Most songs are a copy. You can ask your husband this.
Oh, he would
Well,
never.
you get something and you try to emulate it or copy, whether it's a Lightfoot song or Neil Young or whatever. And I'm trying to copy Paperback Writer, which was like a Chuck Berry song, like Johnny Be Good, the day in the life of a guy. And then your hook is Go Johnny Go or Paperback Writer. And I was in New York and I wrote a song called White Collar Worker about this engineer who wore a white white shirt and tie. And he was blind. He was the engineer. So he was Florence Greenberg's son, Stanley Greenberg. And he engineered our records, even though he was blind. And I asked him about how did he get home. He said, I take the train at night. I have to leave at 10 o'clock and get the train. And I said, I want to write a song about you because you wear a white collar every day. I want to call it White Collar Worker because you come to work every day in a white shirt and tie and a tweed jacket. And why do you wear that? He said, I want to look like George Martin, the greatest producer in the world, producer of the Beatles. So can I go with you? So I follow him. This is like 10 o'clock at night to Grand Central Station. And there's nobody there. There's nobody on the street. And I say to him, I want to see you with people. And I want to write a song about you coming to work. And he said, well, I take the 8:15 into the city.
Oh, there you go.
So, whoa, you get up in the morning from the alarm call morning to the 8:15. So I go there to meet him the next morning at 8:15, and there's all girls putting on their makeup, trying to look pretty. And I write these down, these Chuck Berry lyrics, and they're really good. They tell the story of a working man. And when I get to my course, because I'm copying Paperback Writer, it's called White Collar Worker. And I go, they love to work at nothing all day, white collar worker, just like Paperback Writer.
Right.
And I played for Burton Cummings, and he says, gag me with a drumstick. I will never do, we're going to get sued by Lennon and McCartney. So that gets pitched and never on a Guess Who album. I leave, I start another brand called Brave Belt. I pitch it for the albums. Nobody wants to do it because this course is a lawsuit waiting to happen from Lennon and McCartney. Yeah. And then we start BTO. It doesn't make it on BTO 1. I'm going to a gig one night in Vancouver. Daryl Burlingham's on the radio. He says, this is Daryl B, we're taking care of business.
Wow.
And I go, great song title. So I write it down. You got to write everything down when you're a songwriter or you'll forget it. I have a songwriting kit in my car, which is a smashed crayon and a McDonald's napkin. So on it I write, taking care of business. I get to the gig that night, Fred Turner says, I can't sing, I lost my voice. You got to sing the last set. So I had to sing the last set, and I wasn't really a singer. So I pull out a Dylan song, Nobody's Dancing. I pull out a Rick Nelson song, Nobody's Dancing. Okay. I start to play Oye Como Va, Everybody Dance. It's a Santana song. And in the middle of that, I think this is your big chance for White Collar Worker. Everyone's passed on this. They're on stage. The band is your hostage. But take out the white collar. Meanwhile, I'm playing Oye Como Va, you know, and then everyone's dancing. And the other side of my brain singing, but don't do the break where you do White Collar Worker. Slide in what Daryl B said. Taking care of business. And I start the song, it's the same lyrics. They get up in the morning from the alarm clock in the morning. When it gets to the white collar worker, I don't say that, I say taking care of business. And it's smooth and it fits. And the next time around, the band sings it, and I don't know how I answered them. Every day, every way, it's all mine, and working overtime. And it was just like writing American Woman on stage. Just this ka-ching happened. The angel of song shot an arrow. It hit me right there. It's still there, and I love it, and I love singing that song. It gets the same reaction every time I do it, and it's like my best friend.
You'll be taking care of business in Winnipeg. So they're wrapping me up, Randy, but I have one more question for you. So, you know, you're an Uber Zoomer. You're 7 years old now. You're still on the road.
Yeah.
They want to know in the book, and you answered, you ever going to retire?
No, there's no stop button here. Somebody asked me early this morning. I said, you know, like, my idols are like B.B. King, Neil Young, Bob Dylan. Last Saturday I went and saw Paul Simon and Sting. It was absolutely a night of tears and joy and singing and dancing. It's fantastic. We are minstrels. We're the old-fashioned minstrels that went town to town. We don't make any money selling records anymore. It's all stolen and moved around the internet. But we go town to town and play and sing for our suppers, so to speak, and it's a lot of fun.
Long may you rock,
Thank you.
my
I will.
friend. Well done. Thanks, Randy. And you can see Randy if you're in Toronto at Massey Hall on March 15th. Have a great time in Winnipeg.
Thank you.
And I'll see you at your next
gig.
See you later. Thanks, Randy.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.